Okay, so we're recording. So this is an introductory demo to Cubase LE with Ian and myself. And hopefully this will be useful to share with students, especially if you're new to Cubase and want to get the basics. So the basic system is software, and that's the icon there. So assuming that's loaded up onto the machine. And I've got a MIDI keyboard attached, a USB keyboard attached. And in W118A, there's those mini keyboards which we've just left attached to each machine, so they'll get cleaned and wiped at each session. But they're plug and play. Sometimes you get a bit of a connection issue. Usually, if you disconnect the keyboard and then connect it again, if it gets jammed, it usually solves the problem. So just starting from scratch, just double click the icon. So that's the opening dialogue that you get in Cubase. You can start up many different kinds of project. So you can see there's the recent projects that I've been working on. So if you've saved your project, you should see it listed there. And you'll notice that the file name is .cpr. So the Cubase project is always .cpr. You can do recording. Obviously, we're not looking at that for this module. We're looking at MIDI. But we can look at doing some recording later once we've got the MIDI track sorted. So maybe you can add vocals or things like that at a later date. You can do scoring and production, and you can do some mastering as well. But my advice, well, the best place to start off with is with an empty project. So bottom right hand corner is to start up an empty project, and you'll get the main, what I would call the arrangement window, so to speak, which is you'll see familiar bar lines. So it's a general layout. So you've got what's called an inspector on the left hand side. VST is basically the plugins which will appear on that side, and there's also a media tab, and then there's a editor at the bottom. And also you might see some bottom tabs as well, so a mixer. So you can see obviously we're going through Zoom, and I've got a microphone attached to my computer as well, so you can see my voice on a channel there automatically come through. And there's a useful tab called chord pads, which we'll come back to later, which is particularly useful in Cubase for doing chord progressions and things. Okay. Now, the first thing I usually get onto is just the basic operation. So you've got the transport controls here. You can also pull up a separate transport panel. So the main menus are always along the top. So you can have a separate transport which you can move around as well. But it's basically the same information. So down the bottom, there's a metronome. So it's all the buttons. If you hang the cursor over the button, it usually it's pretty good. It tells you what the function is. So you can quickly, because obviously I'm not going to go for everything that you can see, but it will tell you the function there. A good starting place is to work in loops, but So if I play, that's the metronome on, that's the metronome off. So it's important when you're doing a MIDI sequence. Is the important bit is because you're programming it in code, you're programming the notes in. Is that what you do is synchronized to the tempo structure of the project. So it's currently the default tempo is always 120 beats per minute. So you can slow it down if you want to find it easier, and you can see it'll adjust, and you can be doing that whilst it's playing and find a suitable tempo. So I'll start at 110. And typically, like for a project like this on the course, you've got to come up with like 3 or 4 minutes worth of music. So at 120 beats per minute, that's 30 bars. Every 30 bars will be a minute's worth of music if we're working at 4/4. So it's just a little bit of mental arithmetic there. So you're going to be looking at about creating about 90 bars of music for this project. And I think the best way to start off with just coming up with ideas and phrases is to work in loops. So to create a loop, you got to you can see the cursor changes there on the top on the bar lines. I'm just moving the flags. So these are called flags. Okay. Now to operate the loop, there's next to the stop button, there's a reverse arrow. Click the reverse arrow, and it turns purple. That means the loop is active. So if we get back to the start, that's now going to loop.
Yeah, I can only. Yeah.
Obviously, if it's not purple, it carries on. So it's simple like that. Now, I'm pressing notes on the keyboard, so you can tell it's connected. So that's what you're looking for. But obviously, there's no sounds because I've not put any instruments in yet. I've not loaded any into the software. We're relying on built-in sounds, what we call software instruments into the program. So the easiest way to get started is this plus symbol here called Add Track. This is by far the quickest way to get going. And this opens a Add Track dialog box. And you've got various options here. So you can create audio tracks. Now we're not interested in audio at the moment. This is where, if you wanted to record some vocal, so some lyrics, vocals later, you'd set up an audio track to do recording. What we're interested in is instrument tracks. We're also interested in the sampler, which I'll show you a bit later. Come back to that later. But to begin with, you're looking at creating a minimum of 4 individual instrument tracks. So these are the different voicings. So the middle says you've got to have 1 rhythm track. So that's drums and or percussion. A bass track, bass line, and then a melody line, and then a harmony line as well. So, or other voicings, harmonized voicing. So it's basically like a band in a box. We're talking about a band in a box in whatever shape or form that is and style. So you have to pick the instrument. So this is slightly different to in college, but we've basically got the groove agent, and then you've got the Hallion and the Prologue. I've got a few extra things because it's on my machine at home. You won't see these sample tank in college, but you'll see Groove Agent, Hallion, and Prologue, and you'll also see Sampler as well, I think. So I think the easiest way to start a track is to get a groove going on the drums or percussion, even if it's really simple, just to have a reference for the tempo. I mean, you could start off with just coming up with melody ideas, perhaps, or chord progressions. But I suppose being a drummer, I find it easier to, there's no rules about where you start, but I would usually start with the drums or get some sort of, depending on the genre of music. So I'm going to create a Groove Agent track. And the instrument itself pops up. So you've got a drum machine looking interface there. Now I'm clicking on the pads, and it's also connected to the keyboard, but I'm not hearing anything, and that's because I've set up the instrument, but I haven't loaded any kit sounds into it, any drum sounds or anything. So you have to go to the top window. So the dialog box at the top, and this opens up. And what's nice about this Cubase is it's got a lot of sounds, a lot of patches preloaded, and they tend to be categorized by genre. So, I mean, we're going to try and combine this with the songwriting module, and we're trying to combine as much as possible. So if you've got a pretty good idea what sort of style you want to do, that's a good starting point. So let's say you won't find patches. So you look on the genre, and then on the right hand side in the results box, you'll see the kits. So that'd be house kit there, just in this example. And the easiest way to load up the kit is just to double click on it, and it loads the kit in, and then you'll see a sample. You'll see a sound in there. You should be able to hear that. It's quite contemporary. Sort of. On the keyboard, on the keyboards in college, you have to go the kick drum, which is the first note on the left side. I think it's C. You can see it's C1. It's triggering. You have to go to the -1 octave, so you have to go down an octave. So on the little MIDI keyboards in college, just press the little button at the bottom left to take it down an octave, and then the kit on the keyboard is transposed onto the keyboard. So I'm just going through the notes. I'm not sure that's the best kit to use. I'm going to try a different one. So it's easy to change kits as well. So if you're not quite happy with the sounds, you can get. And what's quite cool, some of the kits have got, like the full kits have actually got an image of the kit. So that's quite similar to some of the drum programs out there. Okay, then close that. You'll notice that record enable is on, so the track is pre-enabled ready to record. So that needs to be on. And then I'm going to loop record. So I'm just going to press record, and you'll see it just looping. And I'm going to just play. It does depend on your keyboard skills how well you can play in sync. But there's a button down here that says AQ. There's a button down here. If you need a bit of help to just getting it tight, press the AQ button. That's called auto quantize. Quantize is about pushing the notes to the nearest beat, so it sort of helps you, if your keyboard skills are slightly adrift. And also, there's always a bit of a delay sometimes. I'm just going to put the kick and the snare in to begin with. I've got a slight. Talking of delays, I've got a slight delay here. What I might do, I've got a slight MIDI delay here actually.
Latency is it when you hit the key, it doesn't go in. Maybe where quantize would help.
I'm just going to swap. I'm just going to plug the keyboard directly in. See if that helps. So I'll just delete that. So there are different tools up here. There's an erase tool.
Does it also work if you right click on that? Does it give you an option if you right click on that, Bertie, to delete it? Or can you just select it and hit delete on your keyboard?
There's various ways of doing things. So you can use that tool, you can right click, or you can do Command X, which is
Cool.
It uses the same sort of cut and paste commands as in word processing.
Cool, thank you.
Right, so let's start again. I'm getting a bit of a weird glitch here. I might just try it with, take the AQ off and just try that again.
Yeah, good shout.
I'm getting a bit of a weird delay from the keyboard for some reason. I'm not sure what that is. It's been funny. I mean, there's always there's always a technical glitch. Always.
Always something in there.
Right. Well, normally you'd be able to record that way. So what I'm going to show you is an alternative way of writing. So there's a part. So let's assume I've recorded a drum pattern, but it's a bit ropey. So I've double clicked it, and it opens up the actual part itself with all the notes. And this is the sort of piano roll type view, edit view that is familiar with all these kinds of programs. Is this piano roll? So you've got the keyboard on the left, and you've got the bar lines across the top. So if you press the keys, you can hear the same keys. So this is called step writing. So I'm gonna just write a pattern in. by hand. Just a regular pattern. And I can also show you how you can move notes around. It's actually a groove in there. So you can move notes around, you can stretch notes. So what we call MIDI editing. So you're editing the individual notes. You can select notes, delete them. But I'm not sure if this is the right kit to use, because they're actually grooves. That's part of the problem. I might just change the kit. So I've got a basic pattern there, but I'm going to go back to the instrument. So on the track, you've got edit channel settings, and then you've got edit instruments. So if you click, it's like a little mini keyboards logo. Get back to the kit. Let's go try and find something a bit more basic. So blues rock kit. It's funny, nothing seems to do. When you do these things, it never quite works out how it might expect.
Never does.
Normally you'd expect sounds to be down there. Studio drum set. Isolated. That's better. So I can. So it's quite good because I'm just sort of just showing you a bit of editing at the same time.
Yeah, it's really good. It's handy.
So you can click and drag and select groups of notes. Right, so now we've got just a basic or pulse. So I want to add some hi-hat at this one. You've got black keys, you've got a closed hi-hat and an open hi-hat there.
You could copy and paste that over into the next two bars as well, couldn't you? And then you could edit that so that it's got a fill, and then you could have your original two bars, then your next two with a fill, and then your original two and your next two, couldn't you?
I'll do a fill in a minute.
Okay.
Trying to record. So I've written that by hand, but I'm just going to go back to because I've found the right sounds now, and I just try and record over the top of that. So you can switch between recording and just try and play the hi-hat part in. There you go. I've played that from the keyboard, so you know, it's a combination of. And I have the AQ on, and you can see it's very tight. You can literally come in and out of records and just find the next sound you want to do, and then put it in. So let's do a drum fill. So, but I think the phrase needs to be a bit longer. So I'm happy with that part. So I'm going to copy it. So you can do copy and paste, or the easiest way is to hold the Alt key down next to the space bar and just click and drag. So you can see the cursor changes to a pair of scissors, and that's the easiest way to. And then you can move the loop. If there's a hand, so just look out for these cursor changes, and then we can add a bit of a fill. So some toms on the keyboard. So you know, sometimes it's easier to do a fill by hand if you want. So I could toms there. I'll just do some random stuff. Okay, nice. Okay, so we've got a. Sometimes it's good to merge. So there's a thing called the glue gun. There's a glue gun or a glue stick, which is good for just merging parts together or merging the layers together, so it's one integral part. 4-bar phrase now with a little fill at the end. Okay.
Cool.
So, then let's add another instrument. So you can copy that out as many times as you want. Say through the first part of the song, or through the whole 90 bars that you want to do. Just, you know, keep it simple, and then you can add or take away things later. So we'll move on to one of the other instruments. So I'm going to add another track. And I think one of the key instruments is the Hallion. This is going to be the most useful instrument. So it's got sample-based virtual instruments in it. So this is where you're going to find things like pianos, basses, guitars.
Oh, okay.
So again, it's very well categorized into sections, subcategories. Just maybe just find a bass to add. Let's go for something a bit dirty. So again, double click just to load it in. It's a bit jazzy. Go for electric bass. Yeah, that's better.
That's good.
So again, so now you've got a rhythm part. You can just sort of write a bass line or just get a groove going to begin with.
That your drum, your groove agent has gone off. Record is disabled now, and the Hallion Sonic has record enabled.
Yeah, so that's quite good because it just sets that up automatically. So when it when you set up a new track, it enables it automatically.
Cool.
It just assumes that you're gonna, you wouldn't be setting up a track,
To go back to the old track you've just been working on.
want to work on the new track. So it's quite good. But if you do want to switch back, in fact, you just click on the track and it automatically record enables it. So
That's
it just assumes that's the track you're going to be working on, the one that you select. So you can just find some notes that you like. Just low and C and plus. This is the rhythmic bass line from my imagination. But you can see how easy it is. It's good to come up with a little like 2 bar, 4 bar phrases, I think.
yeah.
And
Stimulate your ideas for the rest of what you're going to do.
I think, along with the songwriting module and just experiment and come up with ideas. So there's a little bass line there.
Excellent.
Then I think it's quite good to get some chords in, maybe. Obviously, the bass line might change. Well, it depends on the chords that you're playing as well, but I can show you the chords. Um, so you've got, by the way, you've got things like mute and solo. So if we play this together, track, solo, solo's the track. Again, it's just this plus button, add track, which is the piano. Quite realistic sound.
It's nice.
And this is where I think it's, the other way of thinking about is to think about chord progression or something. So what I think is really useful in Cubase is chord pad, because a lot of the students, and me included, I don't have the keyboard skills to really know what chord I'm playing. I know about triads, and I play by ear, so
Yeah.
I just find chords that I like the sound of and I think work together. But I don't necessarily know what I'm playing or even what key I'm playing in. But the chord pad is great because it's got some preset chords and they're transposed onto the keys. So I'm just playing, and it plays the chords just from one note on the keyboard. So I'm not having to play the chord myself. I can program it. And each of these chord pads, you can set them to any chord.
So you can add extensions and you can take it compound intervals and stuff like that, ninths, elevenths, all that.
So you can create chord sequence on here and follow any set of chords you want. But there's also, I discovered yesterday, if you click on the chord pad presets, load record some presets. There's a ton of preset scale.
Oh, that's great.
So take minor C. So it loads up the chords that are going to fit in that key. So these are just the white notes. So you don't, it's, this is great for the non-musician, or somebody learning theory as well as, and you can also see what's being played on the top. Yeah, this is brilliant. So we can just play the track. So you can just try things out, and then when you're happy with it, press record. So you can see I've recorded, but it's missed out a chord. But that's easily fixable. You can either record again, or you could copy a chord. So I could just show you how to copy a series of notes, or you could write in a chord in it by hand. Just move this. So obviously you can expand the information in different ways. So I will copy that third chord. So again, it's the Alt keys is a good, get the little scissors, clicking and dragging that whole chord to the first.
Cool.
I've let go too early, so just copy it back. That's it.
You're just hovering over that and hitting Alt, and then that's giving you that option to do that.
Hold the Alt key down until after you let go. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So now. Glitch there. Okay. Solo's on or something. Yeah. Now that whilst that's playing, at the bottom you've got the volumes. So you can change it dynamically. You can see it changes color as well. So before you get onto mixing, you'd only mix the track once you've written all the parts, and that's another demo later. But you can, obviously the phrasing you want to control dynamically. So in MIDI you've got these velocity curves. So you can change it dynamically, and it changes. So you can make the chords quieter or louder within the sequence. Quite a nice groove there.
Isn't it really 70s? No, lovely.
Yeah. It's funny how your style just comes out.
Yeah, just when you're just experimenting.
The other instrument, well, there's two more instruments to show you. There's the Prologue, which is a more sort of analog synth. So I mean, this is probably why you weren't getting any sounds in. It's because of you need to set up an instrument.
Yeah.
So this is more analog synth stuff. Analog synth sounds. You got a myriad of stuff available.
That's great. Absolutely brilliant.
Let's go back. Find something 70-ish, 70s. Some quite tasty. Sometimes you can find there is a way of doing arpeggiating it as well.
Okay.
But that later. Anyway, there's a whole load of synths like that.
Is that the arpeggiator? Like, come on, did you put that on the keyboard?
There's a way of doing it, but I can't remember. Just add a little embellishment. Click off. Hearing about the click now. You know.
Yeah, excellent.
The Euro pop.
Yeah, totally.
Jean-Michel Jarre.
Yeah. Giorgio Moroder.
So it's easy and it's fun. You know, you get loads of ideas, and you can start. You know, if you like that, select all those tracks and start to copy all the tracks to make the intro or the first verse.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think it's quite useful to think like how a guitarist comes up with a guitar riff. It's not was it 2 4-bar phrases?
Yeah.
It's good to think like that in phrases, but keep the drums to begin with. Keep them steady pulse. Keep the bass line relatively steady. You can always go back into it and then make subtle changes or.
Yeah, it's there for you to do. Did you decide? I remember you were speaking about maybe changing it to the arrangement, the form, so that it was specifically intro, verse, chorus. Is that open to interpretation, or does it have to be?
Well, I think it's good practice because for the songwriting module, they've been told. I don't know if you saw the lesson plan that Yvonne sent through to the students for this, and I sort of said to the guys that I had on Thursday to think about the song structure for the songwriting module and kind of go along that, because if you can write a backing track in Cubase for your songwriting module, and then it can also be used for the band work and even for the solo instrumentation, because you could take this away and then record your solo instrument onto it, live track. So that's where the recording could come in later. So I'm going down the route of them thinking about using this in a really sort of in a collaborative way with the other modules to create a backing track.
Okay.
I mean, for the first few weeks, I would just let them just improvise, just come up with ideas as well. You know, because for the songwriting, you need to come up with ideas. So obviously, there's so many ways you can use it. What's quite good is there's things like transposing and like so. I could to
Take a key change or something in it, you just transpose sections and that can give you what you want.
MIDI, transpose setup, and you can just transpose. You can also do, I discovered this, is you can correct it to push it into a certain key, which is also pretty wacky.
That's great. That's really great.
So you don't you don't really need, if you can just play stuff in that's roughly right, and then you can get the scale correction to push it into the correct key. So you just need to be fairly, like me. I'm fine rhythmically. I'm absolutely fine, but I don't necessarily know what I'm playing or whether it's correct or not. But again, this is good for music theory, is to understand what's going on here. So you can push it into, I think it was a minor C, and then we could transpose it as well. Let's just see what happens. Okay, and it's just done it automatically. So now, if we extend that over the 8 bars. That's quite odd, but it's changed it. That's quite jazzy.
It's very jazzy, isn't it? Beautiful.
So that's the prologue, and then the final sort of instrument to show you, which I would let the students look at a bit later, or the more advanced students, is the sampler.
Mm.
And this is useful if you've got a particular sound that you want to use or create, and bring it in as an instrument in its own right. So that's the sampler. So that's basically, looks like this. It's basically,
Oh, okay.
can't hear anything until you load up a sound into it. The sound could be a guitar riff, or it could be a sample. So and it's just click and drag. So I'm gonna just look for sample. Or it has to be a WAV
Got to believe. Okay.
file. So some WAV loops in there. Okay.
Nice.
Not quite sure. Find something. Accidentally opened iTunes. Okay, so I like some vibes. You just drag it in, just click and drag. It's so easy. So now that sample's in the sampler, and now you got it's transposed onto the keys. So I'm now playing that sample.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that means you've essentially created your own instrument from whatever sound you want. You can create original sounds, and it just transposes it. You can edit the sample inside it. So put a bit of that. So this is still MIDI, although it's a piece of audio in there. When you record it, it's still a MIDI track that's going to be triggering it, so it's still valid.
What a beautiful melody.
Yeah,
Awesome.
let's see. Wrong. I should be doing theme tunes for TV. Yeah, I explain to students how learning these skills is useful if you want to do games music, TV music, all the it's a useful skill to have in production, understanding about music production, bands that use it in as part of their music along with the live instruments. You could have sequences in the background and things. um
Excellent.
that's the basics. If obviously it's important to save the project, so make sure so maybe put your initials on it. So, probably quite good to save it early on and save it later. I think it does. If the computer does crash, I think it does make a backup, but I can't
Yeah.
remember. And then if you want to um, select it all, and you can export, make a audio mix down. If you want to an MP3 or something to take away,
Well, let me just change it. Great.
save it in different audio formats.
Okay.
To take it away and listen to offline. That's about it. I mean, that that's basically the demo that I showed them on Thursday. I mean, there's only two. I only had like 2 or 3 in the morning and then in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Not that I've never used it before, but they got going. It's also good for them just to play around with it for a few weeks, because one of the best ways to learn,
Experiment.
not be afraid of it, and just find things out for yourself as well. Obviously, there's the manual. There's the YouTube tutorials, which I emailed them to look at as well, just to get familiar. But I think the best thing to do is just get stuck in, start making some music with it.
Definitely.
Any other questions? I mean, I've just sort of that's a very
That's great. Yeah.
quick get started method.
Yeah. As long as they know their way about it, and so minimum of 4 minutes for the track.
I would say this is the level 5 module, so I think it only needs to be a couple of minutes.
Okay.
I'd say 2 to 3 minutes. At this level.
I think the songwriting is a minimum of 2.5 minutes. So I mean, if we're tying it in, 2.5 minutes.
Absolutely fine. I think
Right.
tie it in with the songwriting
Yep.
as much as possible.
Okay, great.
And that's the thing, the guitarists, if they work out their chords, they can program the chords in from here as well.
Yeah.
All of the same sequence. They certainly, they'll need a backing track, a rhythm and a bass track to play along with.
Yeah.
Vice versa. It's useful for the vocalists to write a backing track for their singing parts. And they can share this as well. Some of them mentioned BandLab as well, which I thought might be a good thing to look at from a collaborative point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And we can maybe look at that a bit later.
Okay.
In terms of once they've written something, they can share files over BandLab.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah.
You can record into BandLab as well. So some of them are going to might want one of the singers to sing their lyric line
Yeah,
And I think you know this is useful for the drummers as well. Obviously, the drummers. Um,
it gives them the power to actually put rhythm and harmony and melody together as opposed to relying on instruments.
um, exactly.
Mm. Fantastic. Thank you very much for going through that stuff. Okay, get a copy of this when you're done. I think it just sticks an M4A or a MP4 file on your computer if you're recording it.
Stop recording now, so we've got that.